So thank you for your time for the interview.
Very good.
Every people in this world wants to pursue happiness. But if you look at Korean society, out of all the developed countries, for the past 15 years, the suicide rate has been number one in South Korea.
Yes.
And the happiness points are always below, very much below average.
Yes.
So how do you think meditation can give hope to these Korean people?
By teaching them how to be more productive with less stress. It's a very easy solution, for which I would need this cup of water. How heavy is this cup of water? The longer I hold it, the heavier it feels. After 1 minute, my arm starts to ache. After 2 minutes, my arm is in pain. After 3 minutes, my arm is in agony, and I'm not a very smart monk. What should I do when it starts to get too heavy to hold comfortably? Put it down and rest. You don't need to rest for too long. 5 minutes, 10 minutes. When I pick the cup up again, it actually feels lighter. So, what this means is that when somebody is working in Korea and they get tired, they should take a break. Especially if they can meditate and really relax the mind for 10 or 15 minutes. That's not wasting time. That's an investment of time. The 15 minutes you spend relaxing your mind, you make up afterwards with greater productivity, clarity, and innovation. In fact, you get the next 3 hours work done in 2. So you're 45 minutes ahead. That's why we call it investment. It's not that Korean people work too hard and too long. They don't work smart enough. When it's tired, you relax. When you go back to your computer and you want to write an email or write a report, because you've relaxed and rested, your mind is now clear. It can produce goods. When you were in school, you had recess in the morning. And every child psychologist knows if you don't have that rest, you can't absorb too much more information. Human children are like that. Adults are also like that. If you're tired and stressed, your productivity goes down. You make mistakes, which you have to go back and fix up. You're wasting so much time. So you don't need to lower productivity. You just need to work smarter by having the opportunity to take a rest and relax at any time of the day, so that afterwards your production, your efficiency is enhanced. Simple. I'm a very productive monk. Written so many books, given so many talks, go many places in the world. I'm very productive. Do I look stressed? So simple.
Thank you. The second question is, in Korea there is a traditional meditation style called Kanhwaseon. And that's pretty much acknowledged by the lay people in Korea as the meditation style that monks practice. And we also want to know what your opinion is and how Korean lay people can meditate.
Yeah. It's meditate like the Buddha meditated. Relax to the max. Because if you learn how to relax first, then you'll find your mind and body are in harmony. You get very quiet and very peaceful. And through stillness, you can see things as they truly are. This is an old Korean story, it's also in the suttas, that if you go up into a mountain and see a lake on a full moon night, if there is no wind blowing on that lake, then there will be no waves on the surface of the lake. And then, when the lake is perfectly still, you'll be able to see an accurate reflection of the moon and the stars in the still waters of the lake. To see truth, insight, wisdom, your lake, your mind has to be still, without even a ripple on the surface. No thinking, but stillness. Then you can see these beautiful images of truth reflected in the stillness of your mind. That's meditation.
The next question is a personal question for you. You studied physics at Cambridge,
Yes,
and while you were studying physics, you met Buddhism.
yes.
How do you think Zen meditation or Buddhism changed your course of life?
Buddhism changed my course of life because when I got extremely still and peaceful, my mind became very powerful, very blissful. So you could do things which other students couldn't do. Just like on the final exams, you could relax. And many people know if you tense up, you get tired and you don't perform well. You make mistakes in the examinations. You've learnt everything, but because you are not relaxed enough and energized enough, that's why people fail. So learning how to relax, be in the moment, be peaceful, was one of the first things which I learnt from meditation, which made me do really well in those examinations. But even more than that, it gave you a peace and a wisdom and an emotional intelligence, which many people in Cambridge never had. There are many professors, many famous people which I got to know. Even Sir Roger Penrose, who was a person who did the maths which discovered black holes. He's the person responsible for showing that black holes could exist and then we could find them. But emotionally, he was a wallflower. He didn't have any real relationships except with his intellect. And I thought that was very sad. Personally, it's my reflection. There was a person who was really intelligent in life, but stupid. So intelligent in physics, but stupid in life. That's my interpretation. And so, I never wanted to be like that. It's okay to have a very, very strong intellect. If you can't appreciate the sunset, you can't appreciate peace and stillness. There's something missing. So I wanted to get something much deeper than science. Life is felt. It's not a mathematical equation.
Thank you. Lastly, if you can turn to the main camera and give a brief message to the BTN viewers. We have over 1 million BTN subscribers across South Korea and across the world.
Very good, Juwayo. So please always remember that you have a powerful tradition from Korea. And that powerful tradition will actually help overcome the stress of your life, make you more productive, more happy. You have this huge garden of wisdom, compassion, and deep understanding, which you are forgetting, and it's just degrading. So please, that's why many people will go to Korea and go to a temple stay to learn some of the beauty of that culture. If you don't keep that, you are letting go of something which is so valuable and replacing that by a society which is running around after just so much material benefits. How much do you need? There are two types of freedom, as I was saying earlier. The freedom of desire and the freedom from desire. One is pursuing what you want. The other one is realizing you have enough already. When you want something more, you can't enjoy what you already have. When I was in Korea, it was at a peace event by the DMZ. And there, when there was asked, have you got some last words to say to the people of Korea to remember you? And I asked everybody, relax to the max. At least try that every time you have the opportunity to find peace in your day. Take it. Grant yourself those moments of peace. Otherwise, you will die before you're peaceful. Have you ever noticed, where do you find people resting in peace? In cemeteries. It's too late to rest in peace. At that stage of your life, you're dead. Spend some time resting in peace now. And you realize what you've been missing all these years. That when I was privileged to lead 6,000 South Koreans through the demilitarized zone, we realized the pain in their hearts. They could see just a few kilometers away the land in which many of their memories and loved ones lived, and they could not reach them. So please, can we forget what divides us and imagine what it will be like to reach across those walls, those mined areas, those barbed wire and razor wire, and reach out to people who are our relations and we share our blood and our culture. So it's time for us to forgive the past. Whatever happened, please let that go, so that our children and children's children can live at peace together, one nation, one world, one family. And together it's wonderful what we can do together. So hopefully the next time which I visit the DMZ, I will not walk along the fence, inside the fence, but along the fence. Next time we hope we can walk across the DMZ to the other side and back again to bring peoples together who have been divided for far too long. Remember, without your help and sponsorship, then BTN can't do its job of actually spreading good teachings throughout this world. So don't just complain about things like in South Korea, the highest suicide rate in the world. Do something about it. Make sure you can help sponsor these Buddhist networks so that you can preserve your culture and lessen the stress and the pain of our modern life. So please, BTN, the best television network in Korea.
Thank you very much.
I think that so much in Korean culture automatically comes from Buddhism. People already know Buddhism in their bones just by being Korean. So the irony is that because of that, it's much more difficult to see what Buddhism is really teaching. It's almost like, you can't see the person close to you because you see them too much. You can't really see who they are. It's kind of like that. In a way, in the West, Buddhism became popular for the same reasons, for people being unfulfilled and disturbed by modernity. the modern world is a very difficult world in Korea and everywhere else. You know, everywhere else in Asia, perhaps it's worse in Asia because Asia did have a coherent culture longer than in the West, which has been preparing for modernity for a longer period of time. But no matter which country of the world it is, modernity is full of suffering and difficulty, even at the moment when we are told that we should be happy, and we should be wealthy, and we should be smart, and we should be beautiful, and yet we are unfulfilled. So, in a way, I think we need in Korea to take Buddhism, take the meditation practice out of Buddhism, and just present it in a totally different way, without the traditional framework. Even though I've been to Korea, as you well know, and I've met some tremendously wonderful monastics there who are very wise and have meditation to offer to people. This is the irony. The meditation is there and the sages are there, and yet I'm sure that Korean youth can't hear the message because it comes in a package that they're too used to. So somehow or other, Buddhism needs to be defamiliarized, and meditation practice needs to be defamiliarized so that the youth of Korea can hear it, because it does help. It definitely helps. And it's really needed in Korea and everywhere else, all over the world now. We need a kind of religious life that is free of all the traditions that encrust it and make it hard to access. We really need that everywhere. And it's sad because it's right in your own house. It's right there. I always say to people, you think you don't have time to meditate, but the truth is you don't have time not to meditate. Because when you analyze your life, you spend a lot of time picking up messes that you have made because you haven't been mindful enough. You spend a lot of time wasting time without knowing you're wasting time. You spend a lot of time doing things that you probably shouldn't be doing at all because it's not good for you. So if you practice meditation for 1/2 hour a day, and if you have to get up a little earlier, that's fine, get up a little earlier. The lack of sleep for that 1/2 hour won't matter much. But if you do that every day for 1/2 hour, and also reflect on the Dharma during your day, you will put yourself in a process of changing your life, changing your priorities, and seeing things about your life that you were not able to see before. And when you can see things about your life that you were not able to see before, you will change your life in ways that save yourself a tremendous amount of trouble. You know, we have collectively, all of us together, nobody is to blame, and we're all to blame. All of us together have created for ourselves a wonderful and a really impossible life on earth. It just isn't working anymore. And then we all know it. We all know it, and we all think we're stuck with it and there's no way out of it. But we created it, so we can change it. And so I think it has to be with each individual person. So you have to begin with the decision that it's true, this really is impossible, this really is not good for me. I've got to make a change. And maybe the simplest change, the simplest acupressure point is just this meditation. Just do that and see what happens, and many things will come from it. Well, it's actually very simple. As I said before, we have a very simple meditation instruction that just tells the person to begin by sitting up straight, lengthening the spine, opening the chest. You know, you can see as I'm sitting, it's a very simple thing. I'm sitting in a chair, but I am sitting up straight, and I'm bringing my awareness to my body, so I feel my feet on the floor right now. Amazing, I can talk, and at the same time, I can be aware of my feet on the floor, I can be aware of my buttocks on the chair, I can feel my spine, my back, my shoulders. And in that way, when I return awareness to my body, just that one thing alone brings a measure of stillness to my heart. So I do that. That's always the first thing. And then the next thing is to begin breathing in the belly and feeling my breathing in the belly. And then each breath in, each breath out. And just staying with that breathing and following the breathing. And at the same time, being aware of the body. So actually, the technical word for this meditation is called, in Japanese, shikantaza, which means just sitting. So it's just sitting, being present with sitting, which means the breathing, the body, and the mind, just present with that. And in that way, I find some stillness, some peace, and if I sit there long enough, deep things in my heart that are not accessible to me because I'm too busy to be open to them, they will surface into my mind. Some of those things might be difficult or disturbing, but if I let them surface in my mind without messing with them, they will be healing for me. So in that way, the meditation provides a still platform for many things to arise and be healed. BTN was kind enough to host me and take care of me and my wife Kathy when we were there in 2017, so I really love you and your station and all your viewers. And I came to really appreciate the soul and heart of Korea. You know, in Buddhism, the Buddha taught, you already have Buddha nature. You already have everything you need. And that's true for everyone, but it's especially true in Korea. You know, I really think that the Korean people have a wonderful capacity for heart. So I wish that the Korean people would pretend that they never heard of Buddhism, pretend that they never heard about it, they didn't know anything about it, and starting tomorrow, go into their temples and go and talk to their sunim as if they never heard of it before and begin to listen to the real message of the Buddha. And I think it would be so wonderful for Korea. Thank you.
I do meditate. When I began to study Buddhism, it was in 1954. That's more than 60 years ago. But at that time, I was at the University of Southern California, and my professor said that he recognized I was very interested in the Buddhist material, so he said, you need to go and practice a little of this. So I went to a Japanese Zen teacher in Los Angeles, Nyogen Senzaki, who was one of the first Zen teachers to come to the U.S. He was still alive. He was in his 80s. He was a wonderful teacher. And I started meditating with him. So I've always recognized that to some degree, one needs to do that. I can't say that it's given me, and I'm not an enlightened person, so it hasn't worked in that respect for me. There are times when I'm translating or researching that is meditative in the sense that I lose track of time. I'm suddenly in another place, and I kind of come to and realize that I've been just thinking and working on some idea and reading and writing or whatever in an almost unconscious way. So we do that as humans in any case. I think every human does it to some degree. I think you could go into any factory and ask somebody who's working on an assembly plant, do you ever just zone out and you're somewhere else, but your hands are still doing this work? And I'm sure they would say yes. I think professional athletes admit that that happens to them all the time. they say, I have to stop thinking. I have to just let everything go and just free my mind and be there. And somehow it happens. So I'm a great believer in meditation. For the last 20 years, I've been working with a group that teaches meditation in prisons. And I have to say that I have been very impressed by the fact that those prisoners who practice meditation really change. And it's remarkable what the change is in them. And you would think that would be the worst place to practice, would be in a prison. But yet they laugh and say, here we're almost like a monastery. We don't have to work. We don't have to cook our food. We don't have to worry about clothing. We have nothing to do all day. So once they learn how to meditate, many of them will sit and meditate for 8 hours. So the prisoners I teach often are practicing more meditation probably than most monks and nuns ever have time to do, because you have to run a monastery. And yeah. But watching those prisoners, I came to realize this is an incredibly powerful thing, because through the years, and I'm still working with some of the same people that I started working with almost 20 years ago, because they're in prison for life. It's not like a university class. I can have a student for 4 years and then I never see them again in their whole life, so I don't know what happens to them. These students are always there. We grow old together. So I can see their changes. And I can almost now, when I walk in and I'm seeing the same people I've been seeing for many years, I just look at them, and once in a while I'll say to myself, that one woke up since I was last here. They're awake. There's something about them that they have ceased to be unconscious. They've ceased to be unsmiling. They're just different. And when I talk to them, I realize what a change finally happens. I can't explain the process. I don't know exactly how it happens, but it does. That's my feeling. So I still practice meditation. And I'm not a good meditator, and I'm not somebody who really you should ask. I am not that. I'm a scholar. And sometimes my real meditation is my scholarship. But it's hard to share that. And I know that there are times when some of the best things I write, I hardly remember writing it. And I read it and think, did I say that? What led me to say that? It's that we have the abilities, if we can free our minds and make space in our minds, in whatever way we make that space, that what we do when there is space can be remarkable. Because normally we are in a very small space that we give ourselves. We're worried, we're fretting over something, we are doubting, we have all these boxes that we're inside of in our head. Some people call it the committee, that in their head is a committee, and the committee takes over. and the committee doesn't let them do things or doesn't let them have space. So I firmly believe that if we could free our minds of a lot of the chatter, if we could focus our minds so that we're not leaping around, like they say, monkey mind, then what happens can be quite remarkable. And I've seen it happen in other people. I'm sorry to say, in a way, more than I've seen it happen with myself. I observe it in others, however. There is a part of Buddhism you do not find in other religions as a major focus of attention. And that is, the Buddhist tradition starts by saying, if you want to be enlightened, what's the starting point? And the starting point is that we have to understand how we perceive the world. How do our eyes take in a vision of sight? How can I see you sitting there? And the Buddhists had very early understood something which we are still dealing with in our perceptive science, and that is, how do we perceive the world? And how does the information from our senses get processed so that we have an experience? Because Buddhism has this in it, it doesn't grow old. That aspect of Buddhism will never grow old. It will never become immaterial because it's so human. We're all perceiving all the time. And yet the Buddhists have said, first of all, figure out how your eye, ear, nose, taste, tongue work. That's your first step. And what do you realize? You will realize that you are creating your idea of the world. So I see you sitting there, but you aren't in my head. All that came to me from you was the light reflected off of you, and it reflected into my eye, and it got transferred into electricity, and then in the brain it got transferred into chemistry. And I had an experience that I call I see you. Once we understand that that's the world we live in a virtual reality. People say, this virtual reality that our children experience in games, is it dangerous? And I want to say, that's the way we've been experiencing the world from the very moment we open our eyes and ears when we're born. What we have in our experience is a virtual world, not the real world, if they're in the sense of that some people feel that we are experiencing directly. So that says that the Buddhists are saying how you experience the world is the start of enlightenment, and you have to understand it. Once I understand that, then I have to take my vision of the world with a lot less attachment. And I have to realize I'm interpreting what I'm seeing. And my interpretation is not the world. It's my explanation for it. So I have to withdraw as much as I can from feeling that I am at one and I understand the world and what it looks like, and realize that we are constantly constructing our reality. So therefore, the reality that we construct, however accurate or inaccurate it is, we have to be less sure that that reality which we are experiencing is what is true. So you talk about the future of Buddhism. I think that the future of Buddhism is to say to the world over and over and over that the Buddhist tradition is talking about the human experience. And you have to understand the human experience because you are a human. You have to understand your experience as for what it is rather than thinking erroneously that I'm seeing exactly the way the world looks. But of course, if I could see your gamma rays, your X-rays, if my eyes were, if I could attach something to my eyes so I could see a broader spectrum of light, you would look entirely different. You'd scare me to death probably because you'd be radiating strange lights and flickers that I wouldn't recognize as a human. So somehow in the future, in terms of intelligence, what people are going to be able to do, I have no real way. I think anybody who predicts is always going to be wrong. There are billions of variables, and any one of those variables shifts, it won't be what I thought it was going to be. So I've lived to be an old man. I can say that I had no idea the world would be the way it is today from my childhood. I had no idea about what it would be to live with a computer. No idea what it would be to live with a handheld phone device. I had no idea, really, because it was out of my experience. So I think for the future of Buddhism, that this idea that we should learn how to deal with our human experience, to be as close as possible to an understanding of what we're really experiencing, is not going to go out of fashion. It's going to be around.